Don't forget to ask questions.
Right. Good afternoon, Facebook family. I'm Jen Phillips from Jen Phillips LV and justaskjenlv.com. And I have been sharing with you my friend Stephanie Mann for the last several Fridays. And we're not done. We'll be continuing with her for another couple of weeks. But I wanted to not apologize because I don't do that anymore. But I wanted to explain my attire because normally I'm dressed up a little bit more than this. Today at my job was the last day of Nevada Reading Week, and it was pajama day, so we can curl up with a book and read, because when you read, you can change your world. And so I was participating, and I am wearing my pajamas. So just, I don't know if they let you wear pajamas at your job, but my job does. Thank you so very much.
I love it.
For that. So Stephanie, you're going to share with us today step 4 of the empowerment parenting process. And right. Finding your center is this like finding balance? Is that what this?
Absolutely. Yeah, finding your center is something that we all have. But, we have good days, we have bad days. Our children have good days, they have bad days. And sometimes we throw ourselves off center because we're angry, we're upset, maybe we're feeling depressed. And in this day of COVID virus, a lot of kids are off center. Our suicide rate has gone up 200%, and these are our children, which is very concerning, because our kids need to know how to find their spiritual center. And when I say spiritual center, I mean that all of us have a spiritual center. That is the core of who we are. We are spiritual beings. We're not animals. We are spiritual beings. So go ahead. You look like you're going to.
I remember somebody saying once to me recently, like in the last couple of years, that we are spiritual beings living a human experience.
That's right.
It's not just the physical humanness.
Right. But it's kind of like if you have a car and you put on 2 small tires on one side and 2 regular tires on the other side, and you try and drive it, it's going to be lopsided. So, we can all get lopsided. So in order to balance or put us find our own center, we have to make sure that we've got the right tools. Yeah. So one of the things that is so important, well, let me show you this, because this is from the book. I'll show, can you see that?
Yes. So
okay.
that reminds me of kind of like the angel and the devil. We watched Donald Duck with the angel and the devil on his shoulders. And I don't know about you, Stephanie, but like when I was growing up, mm-hmm. I was not taught to listen to that inner voice. I was not taught about that. I wasn't taught to trust it. I wasn't taught to listen to it. If I was unaware of that teaching. Like, I grew up very Catholic, and I grew up that, like, God and having like his will, and, read the Bible and all this kind of stuff. And it wasn't until later on in life that I understood the spirit and what that meant, and that it was something that I should listen to, I should trust, and that it's telling me something.
Absolutely. I have a chapter in empowerment parenting called Strengthen Your Intuition, which is what you're talking about, and your instincts. I'm a crime and violence prevention consultant, just to get a little sidetracked here. And I cannot tell you how many women came into our office and said things like, I knew I shouldn't have opened that door and let that guy in to use my phone. And she was raped. She didn't listen to her intuition. But we'll talk about that in another setting here. But I want to get back to finding your own inner spirit. And the red is the bully. Now, all of your kids have encountered bully behavior, and it can even be in the home. It can be even sometimes the kids bullying each other. And this is what I call, the blue, is the pincushion child. That's the oversensitive child, the one that needs to be strengthened. And here is the spiritually centered child who's protected because they don't react to the world. They don't all of a sudden say, oh my gosh, I'm bullied, I'm so angry. No, they can calm themselves down. They know how to turn around and walk away. For example, if I pick a fight with you and I fight back, you're in control. But if I pick a fight with you and you turn around and walk away, you're in control. So that's huge. That's huge. We got to teach our kids how to be spiritually centered so that they don't emotionally go off the rails or become lopsided.
It's
Does that
funny
make
you
sense?
say that because it reminds me of what I would tell my kids because and I would say this even like on the playground because I would have lunch duty and they're like,
Mhm.
so and so's chasing me. I said, if you stop running, they can't chase you.
Very
And they
good.
were like, oh. And it was just a whole different like thought, like, oh, I don't have to run.
Exactly. You
Yeah.
don't have to run and you don't have to react. What a bully looks for are the sensitive kids. They may be bullied at home, they may be abused. You don't know what their story is. So we don't want our children to take on somebody else's problem. So if in order to be strong within yourself, you have to acknowledge that that person has a problem. You don't have a problem. So what you have to encourage kids to do is turn around, walk away. If the bullying is really bad, report it to the teacher. And if it's really bad, I don't suggest that parents interfere. I think I would rather have the teacher help the child and also help them solve the problem rather than mother rushing in and getting very angry. Of course, that's all based on how bad the situation is, because some situations can be very bad and then a parent has to step in. But we want our kids to be spiritually centered in order to, and this is part of learning how to take charge of your own identity. You know, that's who you are, is the strong person that isn't a bully and doesn't become overly sensitive. I had 3 children. I had one that was, and she was the oldest one, super sensitive, a clinger when she was little, hanging on my leg. And I went, oh man. And she'd cry if I left her someplace. The other one, my other daughter, was this little bully that came out like, you know, she'd taken on the world. She wanted to organize the world. She wanted to change things. She wanted to be bossy. So that takes 2 different types of skills as a parent. You have to rein in the bully and let them know that she cannot act that way, which I had to do. We had a listening chair. You sit down and share what you're feeling and so forth, which we went over in our last one. But children that are bullies, you know, especially in the family, you got to put a stop to it because they'll do it at school if you don't. Now the other child, my oldest one, would be crying and carrying on. So I had to get her involved in things so that she learned how to be strong within herself. So today, those children are now adults and they're both equal, you know. So that's part of growing up. Now, my son was kind of on the other side of those things. He could be a victim one time and he could bully kids the other time. And that has to be corrected too. You have to talk to them and listen. That's why we suggest in the book, you have a listening chair so that kids can get all of their anger out or talk about it so they don't go to bed angry at night.
So I'm curious because I've been working with a mentor of mine for about a year and a half now, and he
Mhm.
talks about the balance, and he talks about how when we are an overly supportive parent, we are that helicopter parent that you
Oh,
talk about,
yes.
then we are encouraging, well, not encouraging, but it's inviting a bully to come in. Like somebody's going to come and knock our kid down a peg. If we don't allow them to experience challenge with us, the world will give them challenge.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the reasons I say that being a helicopter parent is almost being abusive to your child. You're not letting them learn the lessons that they have to learn in order to survive, in order to make their life happy. Because if you go in and fight all their battles for them, they don't learn anything from that.
Yeah.
So it's critical that you teach them how to handle their anger or their oversensitivity so that they don't, so that they find their own center. They know how to stay calm within themselves. They know how to speak up. They know how to feel good within themselves because they met a challenge. And I think I told you the story of my son and the Superman costume. Do you remember that? I'll tell it to you again. Uh, my son was 6 years old and he came home crying from school. I mean, it's first grade. And I said, "What's the matter?" And he said, "Oh," he said, "this little Johnny is hurting my feelings. He's making me angry, blah, blah, blah." And I said, "Oh, now here's what you have to do. You have to put on your Superman costume and let the word bullets bounce off your chest." And he went, "What does that mean?" But I tried to explain it to him. And a couple of days later, he came back crying again. And I thought, oh, so I went through the whole procedure of talking about how he needed to put on his costume and let those word bullets not upset him, but turn around, walk away, whatever he needs to do, but don't let it upset him. Well, probably a week later, he came home and he was all excited. And he said, "I took care of little Johnny." And I said, "Uh-oh, what did you do?" And he said, "Well, he said, I told him, if he doesn't stop, I'm going to punch him in the nose." And he said, "I turned around and I went over and I told the teacher and she took care of it too." So he handled it himself. I didn't have to go to school. And it was great. It was great because he learned the valuable lesson, and all kids have to learn that lesson.
I remember that story. I didn't remember the Superman costume part. That's what I didn't remember.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. My ex-husband and I don't know how many families you deal with that deal with this whole co-parenting, separate household.
Yeah, it's hard.
It's very hard. It's very
Yes.
hard. And this week I had to deal with it with my kid. And I don't have to deal with it really like all the time, but my son is really unhappy at the school he's at. And a lot of kids are because
Yeah.
it's not in person and it's different. And it's not close to his dad's house. And it's close to my house, but most kids who go to this school live around the city. Like it's a magnet school and they live all over the city. And so being distant, it's been very difficult. He has not made friends in the same manner. And he's not doing well because he's not putting forth the effort. And he's not asking for help. And he wants to go to the zone school by his dad's. And I'm like, I have a hard time with that. I already drive across town to take him to the magnet school, which I'm happy to do. And
Right.
I'm happy to take him to the zone school by me and punish him because he has not done his job. He has not done his work. He has missing assignments. He has not put forth that effort. But then his dad's like, "Well, it takes the same amount of time to drive him over here. What's the big deal?" I said, "I am not going to reward my son for getting D's and F's. I'm a math teacher. He has an F in math. He has an F in geography. And I'm supposed to be okay with that and just let him go do what he wants to at 12 years old." And I'm like, "No, I'm not okay with that." And teaching him that your decisions have consequences, and learning these things at 12, 13, 14, 16, 17 years old before graduation,
Right.
getting some perseverance, getting that, like kind of you were talking about, that shell of protection and my own courage, and learning how
Right.
to speak up and do, like, that is just so important, especially in these formative years. And I'm frustrated because as a parent, I don't want my kid to quit every time he tries something.
Yes.
And that's what's encouraged at the other house. You don't like it, don't do it. And it's like, What the heck are you going to do when you get a job you don't like? What are you going to do when you get a boss you don't like? What are you going to do when you don't like your partner anymore? Okay, just divorce them. Like, that's not how life works. We have to work through things. So I would like
Absolutely.
for you to share for us, when you talked about our spiritual center, you mentioned there are 3 parts to focus on. So what would be those 3 things that are going to help me be in tune?
Well, I would say that probably the most important thing you can talk to your spouse or whoever is about empowering your children. And that's hard, but you have to figure out where your child is as an individual. Is he centered? If not, is he has a tendency to be overly sensitive, get upset easily, get his feelings hurt, all of those kind of things. And these are kids are very emotional. A lot of them are very emotional, and especially artistic kids. Have you noticed that artistic children are very emotional? And when they understand about their own power, because that they have power, but a lot of kids aren't told that, but they have to be centered in order to see the power, and then they can evaluate some of these things for themselves. They can even evaluate their own friends. And I would suggest that a good way to do that is to write down their friend's name and say, where are they? Is he sensitive? Does he tend to bully? Is he liked by a lot of kids? Is he a loner? Let them figure out about their own friends. Don't just have them. I want them to be smart about picking their friends, because friends are really important, and you don't want them to feel so bad about themselves that they pick the kid in the school that nobody likes, everybody's angry with. You want them to have good friendships and learn how to develop good friendships. So that's important.
So how do we use your 3 C's to help me do that?
The 3 C's are courage, character, and a self-protective conscience. Now, that is the goal for helping your kids grow strong. And you can be very observant about, does your son have courage to stand up to other people? Is he developing courage? Will he sit in the back row and hope nobody notices him? Or will he sit in the front row and raise his hand? Where is he on the scheme of things? Because most kids are kind of in the middle. Character is something all of us want to get eventually. Uh, that takes time to develop character. And character is who you are as a person. Are you giving, caring, loving, sharing, all of those good things? That's part of your character. Or are you the opposite of that? So you want to help your kids develop character. And then a self protective conscience is what you mentioned at the beginning about your intuition, because you have uh, amazing powers within yourself. And that self protective conscience tells you who you are. It'll help strengthen you. And if you listen to it, for example, if your son or daughter says, I'm going to the store and I just steal something, nobody's going to notice, just some candy. That's not character, but that you got to have a conscience. You want them to have a conscience that's wrong. And if they do that, it becomes easier and easier to fall down this very treacherous path, because you want them to be strong. And to be strong, they need to have courage, character, and a self-protective conscience.
Very cool. Very cool. And so as we look at moving into our next week, and as we're looking at learning and continuing to practice being an empowered parent, what would be our homework for step 4? What would we do this week as a step 1? Not a step 1, step 1 was 3 weeks ago. Step 4, if we're going to all right, what could I do today to help my kid, help my family to be more centered?
Okay, one thing I might suggest is have your son or daughter make a pie chart
Okay.
on how they spend their time. Okay, now, how much do they study? How much do they play? How much time are they on the computer? How much time are they watching television? How much time are they playing outside with their friends? How much time are they just spending alone and with themselves and thinking about things that they want to accomplish or that they're trying to do? So a pie chart can tell them a lot of information about who they are. So, and that's kind of fun to do, and kind of go over it with them and say, well, do you think you need to spend more time on your homework since it's only like this and you want it to be like this? So that's a way parents can encourage their kids.
Very cool. And I love how you mentioned that because it gives the kid ownership of their life and
Mhm.
see what they are in charge of. And I think going back to the power of what you talked about, kids having their own power and knowing they have their own power,
Absolutely.
and that the power isn't taken away from you. Like
Right.
it's that I grow in my power. I like the courage, and then the being able to stand up for myself and
Mhm.
having all those things. Those are all part of my power. And then knowing, I mean, even like my son, with this whole thing with school, having the courage to say, Mom, this is what I want. Not that he's going to get it, by the way, but that he can say that and be open with me, open with himself. And
Right.
we had a conversation last night for, I don't know, 20, 30 minutes. And I'm like, do you understand why I say this? Do you understand why I disagree? Do you understand that? And I'm not saying you can't go do it, but I told him, and maybe this is like, I'm not gonna say right or wrong, but I said, you can live with your dad then next year. And I'll see you on weekends. But I'm not going to drive across town to help
Right.
you do that when I completely disagree. And I'm like, that's a consequence.
Okay.
I'm gonna miss you too. But I'm not willing, I'm unwilling to be an over supportive parent that allows you to escape from your consequences.
You're a good mom.
Thanks,
Y-
Stephanie. I try every
We
day.
all try. Listen, it's kind of trial and error. What worked, what didn't work. We all go through it, and parents really need. And don't forget about having supportive extended family, because a grandmother, an uncle, and make sure they're responsible people, because some aren't. And children need a lot of different individuals in their lives, just so that they learn something from everybody.
Oh yeah.
So
Oh yeah.
yeah,
Well, Stephanie, thank you so much for joining us again today.
thank
Everybody,
you.
thank you for tuning in. Next week, Stephanie's going to share with us step 5. And I've been lining up more speakers. So if you haven't been on lately, come and check me out throughout the week. We're going to have a lot of fun meeting some more new people. Lots of good stuff coming. Come check out jenphillipslv.com on Facebook, and we will share with you all the other cool things that we're learning. And Stephanie's going to continue to share with us how to empower ourselves as parents and raise our children to be empowered as well.
And I might mention that they can find out more information
Yes.
about empowerment parenting on safekidsnow.com. That's SAFE, safekidsnow.com.
Very cool. Very cool. Safekidsnow.com. And we'll put a link in the comments for you guys. Ask any questions you have for Stephanie. And if you know of parents that are working on centering themselves, being more centered, notice they're like, whoa, I need some help. And share this message with them because they could benefit from seeing this. So have a wonderful weekend, everybody, and we will see you again soon.
Thank you, Jen.
You are very welcome.